You guys are just obsessed with cheese today. Okay, hello. We'll start a tiny weeny little bit early because there's so many people already in the chat, and you've been waiting so patiently, and your conversation's starting to get a little bit strange. Hey everybody, how's it going? I have a selection of cheeses today. So this is the Whitestone Cheese Company, which is a New Zealand cheese company. This is a 4 cheese selection. So we're going to be trying the yellow one here is the Livingstone Gold, a distinctive Whitestone sharp flavoured semi-soft cheese produced in our traditional open vat. A natural additive annatto is added to produce a golden colour. Inspiration for naming it Livingston Gold after North Otago's historic Livingston goldfields. The next one in the red is an aged Airedale, producing a full-bodied flavour profile with a strong to sharp finish that intensifies with maturity. The semi-soft variety is unique to Whitestone cheese and is named after the Airedale farming district, where you also get Airedale sheep, distinct in the North Otago's rolling lowlands. Then the middle one, the most boring looking one, is a Totara Tasty. Aged 18 to 24 months, cut from the block. This is a classic strong flavoured vintage cheddar with a crunchy texture and sharp finish. Cheddar is the way it was made in the old days. Cheddar is by far the most common cheese that we eat in New Zealand, by far. Like, that's everybody's daily cheese is a cheddar. And last but not least is an impressive block of Windsor Blue. Judges describe it as a creamy blue with a soft buttery texture and a silky smooth mouthfeel. It has a unique blue culture that dissects the rich curd and combines to produce a delicate flavour that intensifies with aging. Alright, so let's get stuck in, shall we? Hey Jibble, hey everybody, Juju Bear. Oh Jibble, you're still a mod. Nice. The wrench tool, you're a wrench as we call it in the chat. I didn't realise once I'd set that it was permanent. And of course I'm drinking some Irish cream coffee. Robert Harris. Which has been stewing away while I've been playing Magic the Gathering, waiting for the stream to start. And today's theme for the stream is it's a mighty multiversal stream. I might as well call it the mighty multiversal stream because you guys always ask me multiversal questions about gods and cosmologies and different planets and settings and stuff. So I'm just going to go with it. Okay, first off, we're going to try the... let's peel the wax off here. We're going to try the Livingston Gold. What do they call that? Do they call that a... semi-soft cheese? Semi-soft. No, it's pretty hard. Okay. Definitely has a distinctive gold colour. I don't like it. Very much. So by open vat, I'm guessing that they allow the introduction of strange cultures, which kind of gives it a slightly off taste, if that's what they're going for. Not my cup of cheese, I'm afraid. Okay, let's try the aged Airedale. This one should be a bit less complex in the flavours. I'm going to have a sip of coffee to clear the palate. Hey Lucas. Yeah, the sage of fictional metaphysics. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, aged Airedale. I like that one better. Quite a creamy taste to it. A nice sort of tangy aftertaste to it with a nutty finish. Like I can actually taste a sort of a nutty complex flavour at the end of it. Hard to describe, really. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, I like that one. Oh, no doubt that's won some awards. Okay, let's try the Totara Tasty next. Totara is a type of tree in New Zealand. Totara. Okay. This should be a pretty standard cheddar. I doubt very much it's going to be crunchy, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, I don't know where they got crunchy from. Pretty standard cheddar cheese, not bad. Not bad. It's on a par with pretty much any other tasty cheddar that you have in New Zealand. Cheddar takes a very long time to get to an exceptional quality. Like we're talking 24 months of aging to get really good cheddar cheese. The nutty taste is, yeah, it's definitely a matured mold sort of finish, I would say. All right, now the Windsor Blue. This is an impressive looking bit of cheese. Like, it's definitely a mature blue cheese. Really well made. Should be crumbly as. Yep. Holds together pretty well, actually. Oh, look at that. This is expert level cheese. Will it stack up next to the Puhoi Blue? Let's give it a go. Ooh. Very creamy, very smooth, silky. Very complex flavors. Lots of layers. Beautiful blue cheese finish. That's really good. That's on a par with the Puhoi Blue, I would say. Yeah. If that's not award winning, I don't know what is. Quite intense, but I could definitely eat a lot of that. Unlike the Danish blues, which are a bit overpowering, that one's really nice and creamy. Like they've paid attention to the quality of the cheese as well as the flavours. All right. That concludes the cheese section of our show. Questions. Questions, questions. Cheese domain cleric, yeah. Smeg cheese. Who's the god of cheese on Toril? Oh, good question. I'll have to look that up, actually. I don't know offhand. A Scottish cheddar? Hey, if anybody wants to send me cheese from around the world, you're most welcome. Justin. Ooh, that's a bit of a harsh indictment of nerdarchy. Windsor Blue, also a good character name. Yeah, true. Hazarola cheese, yeah. Yeah. Beautiful veins of mold running through that piece here. Yeah, it's very moldy cheese. Just absorbed cheese into myself, yeah. Yeah, it is a marbling of blue cheese. You can always tell it's a good blue cheese if the blue is sort of spread through the cheese. A dry Irish cheddar. Halfling goddess, yeah, no doubt. Tell us all about the seas and the briny depths. Thanks, Justin. So yeah, last week was pretty much the Ghosts of Saltmarsh released, and that was a good opportunity because it coincided with me doing the video on the Sahuagin, and that inspired me to make a video on the aquatic races of Toril, particularly the inner sea, the Sea of Fallen Stars, which is known as Seros, and the Serosian people. because it's really it's an empire, it's a domain inside of a domain sort of thing. It's the politics of the continental sea of the Forgotten Realms, pretty much. The Sea of Fallen Stars borders on all of these very important areas, and it's really the main source of traffic and trade between the different powers. So whoever controls the Sea of Fallen Stars controls commerce in the inner continent of Faerun. Chain of Acheron is cool too. Yeah, The Ghost of Saltmarsh is a really good book. I've been looking over it, and it's really well put together. They seem to be getting better and better at putting together these things. Inarguably, like the first supplement was woeful compared to this one. And it's got those ship rules. It's got all sorts of new monsters. It's got the Colith, all that sort of all the aquatic races that you expect. It's got juvenile krakens, all sorts of stuff. It's a cohesive sort of story where you piece together these various modules that are a part of it. Essentially, there's 7 individual components which make up a big adventure arc, a campaign arc, and they're all based on really old traditional D&D modules, the first aquatic D&D modules from way back in the day. Is Zugdmoy a patron of cheese? I would say so, except this cheese would infect me and turn me into cheese. That's kind of Zugdmoy's shtick, as she takes over things. Well done. Thank you very much, William. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. That was quite an intensive amount of lore in that one. You guys still griping about Nerdarchy. Nerdarchy been around as long as my channel has, for sure. They've always been bigger than me in general. Although I am quite proud of the fact that now, just as an individual, I'm putting out almost as many videos as they do every week. Oh, that is a good insult to somebody's god, Kennick, for sure. Adventure Zone is a character named Taco. Ryan the Scar, what's the deal with Asmodeus? He is actually a... yeah, so the rumour is that he was a Quattle, and when he fell from the celestial realms, his body was so broken up that any humanoid appearance that he has, and one of the reasons why he doesn't leave the Nine Hells, is because it's just a projection, an illusion, and he is in fact a gigantic serpent creature. But that could be 4th edition lore, it could be retconned, it could be true of certain realms and not others. Remember, he's a multiversal entity, so he's got many different versions of himself in alternate dimensions that combine to make the general Asmodeus god. Jimmy, thank you. Can characters go to other universes with 10th level spells? Yes, they can. Absolutely. Oh, yes. Thank you very much, William. Yeah. Hugin and Moonin. You may notice that I wear ravens quite often. And yes, Hugin and Moonin are the ravens of Odin. And I wear raven shirts quite often. And you'll see raven stuff and things that I do. They're kind of like my totem. Because they represent thought and memory, which is exactly what I do. So it makes sense that I've got a soft spot for the ravens of Odin. Cheese sliced cloakers, cheese oozes. Jeez, Josh. Yeah, so there will be more aquatic races, but this week we're going the complete opposite, and we're going to the plane of fire. Not only that, but we're going to the actual sun of Toril, of realm space, to check out various races and because we're talking about salamanders, and salamanders are one of the major races of the plane of fire, as well as the Firelands in Chult, and there's an Underdark area. Oh, the Underdark area is called the Firelands, and on Chult there's a mountain range, a volcanic mountain range called the Flame Peaks, and that is an area of intense adventure and interest. because not only does it have a naturalized population of salamanders there who move there from the elemental plane of fire, but also that's where the sleeping tomb of Dendar, the world serpent, lives. He actually swallowed the sun. So yeah, there's a lot of lore involved in that is pivotal to the actual existence of Faerun. Oh, nice one, Justin. Displacer beast cheese. Well, I suppose, yeah, you could milk a displacer beast. Can a character go to the Abyss and have access to 10th level spells? Yes, they can. The restriction on 10th level spells only exists on Toril, and more specifically, even maybe possibly only the continent of Faerun itself. Azure flame people. Blue flame. Yep, you can actually go to the surface of the sun in Dungeons and Dragons, and there's populations, there's Helions and various other populations of creatures that you've never heard about, which I'll be bringing to you in a general ecology of flame creatures. So we went the aquatic races, and we're going to go the complete opposite and go the flame races. So that's Aesir, Helions, Salamanders, Efreet, that sort of thing. Yeah, Corvids are cool. Maybe one day, William, I'll possibly make it to a convention or something like that, and we'll catch up. Should be lit. The cheesy ding. Yeah, I've embraced it, Jibble. It's okay. It's on brand with me. How often do you GM D&D sessions? I've heard it's hard to find time for you when a channel as large as this. So I've got one weekly game that I play with my friends, because I left the city that I've lived in for the last 10 years to move out to the country to look after my parents' orchard. They're getting on in years, and since I'm self-employed now, I can do that. So, but I still have a Tuesday weekly game where we get onto the Discord chat and we video chat, and I run a game for them every Tuesday evening. Other than that, I was running a game for a while online, and that was fine. So I could probably fit another weekly game in online. But yeah, I do really want to concentrate on putting out as much content on the channel as possible. And that requires, basically, I will put out a video, and then I'll research and work on a video for a day, and then I'll put out another video at the end of the next day. So it takes me a couple of days to put out a video. And that's a good pace for me. So I can get 2 or 3 videos out and a live stream every week. Would the cheese of a disenchanter take your spells away temporarily? No, Ellen, it wouldn't, unfortunately, because the disenchanter has got a special sort of face organ thing. It's not a property of the fluids of its body. However, if the disenchanter has got some sort of bacteria involved, if there's some sort of disenchanting bacteria, you wouldn't even need a disenchanter. You could make cheese that disenchants things just by the bacterial culture. Oozes that disenchant things could be incorporated into cheese, maybe. If you used enlarge reduce, could you reduce a gelatinous cube down to a micro size and have cheese full of gelatinous cubes? Why are there any battles of the Blood War happening in the first... Why are there any battles of the Blood War happening on the first level of 9 Hells and the first layer of the Abyss? Why wouldn't they take place on planes in between? So that's a good question, Dragon Turtle. The main reason why they happen on the first layer of the 9 Hells is because that is where the river Styx intersects with Avernus, and the demons come through the natural portal, which is the river Styx. So it is the most heavily fortified waterway in the multiverse. Yeah, it's just full of like, you can't stop the flow of the river Styx into a plane of existence. Same like you can't stop the flow of the Oceanus, which is the upper planes waterway. So there's this flow of water which goes around all of the planes of existence, and the lower planes, the river Styx, that is how they use that waterway to get around. So there's constant threat of an invasion of demons, and they try it all the time. And there's a lot of devils which specialize in making sure that the river Styx is secure all the time. The planes of the abyss is chaotic. So when you transport into the abyss, you never know what plane you're going to land on. It's random. So you can't just make a teleportation spell that will take you to a specific plane of the abyss by wanting to. You have to have a specific sort of address book and key to get in there, sort of thing. It's just too chaotic. It's almost like it's on the move all the time. It's messed up. Letitia, that is a crazy question. Can Zugtmoy be milked? Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think Zugtmoy counts as a mammal, really. If you know how to speak primordial, do you by default know how to speak the 4 elemental tongues? Well, it's kind of like dialects of primordial. Primordial is more of the language of creation, so it's like speaking physics. Whereas the elemental tongues are spoken by creatures mainly out of necessity because of the way they're built, and they incorporate lots of specific concepts to elemental nature that is too specific for primordial. Primordial is the general talk of cosmology and creation and matter and energy, and souls and stuff. Whereas elemental tongues are more specifically about fire or water sort of things. They've got a million different words for snow sort of thing. So primordial will certainly help you understand the elemental tongues. Thank you, Mr. Werewolf Dude. By any chance, can you explain where Vecna was while he was dead? You mean, what do you mean? Where his soul was? Hard to say. He probably bounced around the abyss. Maybe he went to the fugue plane. Who knows? Yes, Kick-Ass Duke. The abyss is definitely the cancer of the multiverse. Hey, not a dog. Yep, Auran, Terran, Ignan, and Aquan are only dialects of primordial. Yeah, so the Chinese definitely have a more integrated view of the elemental states, which is fun to play around with. And you can include it or not in your D&D stuff. In Forgotten Realms, Karatura is a big area of the continent of Faerun. What's your best application for the Tarrasque story-wise? Mainly as a lingering threat, like not something which they have to face, but something that they potentially face that motivates them to do other stuff. No, Matthew, you're not super late. The multiverse is infinite, yep. So in theory, you could have a D&D setting in any world, from TV, games, etc. Could have a setting in the TMNT universe. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Japan's changed its emperor? Really? I did not know that. Yeah, Patter. Yeah. Nice, Daniel. How to milk a Gorgon. With a pair of pliers. Yes, Bumbling Bureaucrat, it's possible to speak an elemental language whilst still being a meat person, for sure. The favourite thing I learned about while researching the Sahuagin was probably the relationship between the Sahuagin and their cousins, and the elven aspect between them, and the creation myth, and also the flame jelly stuff, basically their green fire. I really like that as well, and the applications for it was just, I just thought of these aquatic creatures using this flame jelly stuff was just, it sent my mind spinning in all sorts of directions. And the fact that they are actually quite intelligent, technologically capable. Yeah. Oh, the fugue plane is in the ethereal plane, and that's a demi-realm where it's kind of in the middle, between the ethereal realm and the astral astral realm is a sort of a border zone, which is the ethereal border with the upper realms of thought. And that's the fugue realm, where they sort out the dead into which afterlife they're going to go into. So it's the check-in counter, ruled over by Kalimvor at the moment, in the plane of Forgotten Realms, which determines where the dead are going to go. That's what the fugue plane is. Anytime you miss the cheese segment, you're late. Yeah, well. Thank you. Thank you, Chrysanthia. How does the Celestial Court fit into the planes of the lands of Karatua? So the Celestial Court is like a another pantheon, essentially. And they have jurisdiction over Karatua, whereas the Faerunian pantheon has jurisdiction over Faerun. Those areas. Yep. So souls that worship Data go to their realms, and those that disobey their god's commands go to the nine hells. But if you do not pledge yourself to a deity, what happens? You may end up wandering around the fugue plane until if you're particularly like, if you deny the existence of the gods, your punishment is that you just get stuck into this wall of souls. Essentially, you're trapped in your soul just doesn't go anywhere. It just sits there in this wall, coalesces into it. It's a horrible fate, really, to be stuck in a wall in the fugue plane, just watching people wandering by, mourning. It's a fate worse than death, sort of thing. I saw snippets here and there, Adam, of the Descent live events, and I think we're definitely going to see a lot more of that in future. You can definitely see the way that things are going with the live streaming and stuff like that, with celebrity culture of people playing, bit actors playing D&D, getting other actors involved, and that's fine. That's how America works anyway. The celebrity culture thing. They love seeing people that they recognise from whatever media that they've watched, and watching them play D&D. Somebody should definitely warn those stars, though, that D&D has a habit of bringing out secrets in people. Like, you really get the cut of somebody's jib playing Dungeons and Dragons with them. You get to understand them on a deeper level, because you're watching them for a few hours, and I don't think actors are used to being on for a few hours at a time. They will relax and show their true colours, and if they happen to be a dirtbag human being, it's going to come out eventually. Pro Jared. When I say multiverse, do you mean the set of all the crystal spheres? Yes, I do. I mean multiverse as in all of it. And contained in that sort of illustration of the phlogiston and the spheres and all that sort of stuff. In theory, there's other ways for the universe to be. Like, for instance, the universe of the Obrinth, before they came over and turned into the demons, was entirely separate from it was a different phlogiston, it was a different thing entirely. So, on the border of the multiverse are the far realms, and then past the far realms, beyond some sort of a border we're not aware of, is other universes, other multiverses. So it's huge. What is Moanda and how does it work? Oh, I don't know. I'll need to look that up. I'm familiar with the name. I just don't know anything about it at the moment. You've drawn a blank. 5 points on cheese law. Bitopia is one of my favourite planes, actually. The idea of an infinite amount of land to explore. Like, infinite real estate. Free real estate. In your Genasi video, you talk about mixed elemental Genasi. In your book, can only find stats and info and such. Oh, yeah. So, mixed Genasi are from 4th edition. I don't know if we've got any mixed Genasi in 5th edition yet. But in theory, Genasi can learn to adapt and absorb different elemental energy into their body and become a mixed Genasi. It's rare, but it can happen. Yep, there's an utter south, Umbra, south of Zakara, which is east of the continent of Faerun. I should actually do a video on a world map of Faerun and talk about the various areas just for people so they get a better grounding in where these areas are. That was one of the reasons why I originally started studying Faerun, is because I wanted to learn the map. I wanted to be able to talk about Faerun and know exactly where Unther was and where Rashiman was and where the Shah was and all that sort of stuff. I wanted to ground myself in it as an actual place because it's very complicated. So I wanted to learn about the geography of it, and in doing so I learned a lot about the monster ecologies, and that's what spurred this entire thing in the first place. Deborah Ann Wall, yeah. You see a lot of Deborah Ann Wall around. One of the interesting... AJ throwing shade. No, I'm not throwing shade. Okay, yeah, I'm throwing shade at Pro Jared, for sure. He's a garbage person. So one of the interesting talks that I did catch was Mike Mills talking about demon lords and their influence on the demons that follow him. The demon lords have kind of like, you know how your pets look like you sort of thing? Well, with demons, that's definitely the case. Demon lords have demons that take on an aspect of their demon lord because they're drawing energy off the demon lord as it engages in maximum destruction. So the particular flavor of that demon lord, the particular flavor of destruction that it finds the most tasteful, that influences the entire horde of demons that flow with it. So demons can swap and change between the different demon lords, but of course the higher up the chain they get, the more sort of latched onto the teat of destruction of that demon lord in particular. Demon lords that don't engage in wanton destruction, murder, evil, sadistic brutality lose power and lose followers. The more destructive and aggressive in the destruction of the multiverse they are, the larger the horde they attract, and the more those demons start to look and feel like servants of that demon lord. They are engines of destruction that run on the destruction that they create. So it's a feedback loop, and they can't stop destroying. Not only that, but they have no intention of stopping destroying things. They thrive on it. It is literally their bread and butter. My day's going very well, thank you. Thank you, Justin. Can I tell you about ARM? I need to do some more research on ARM. ARM's an important power to the south of the Sword Coast, down below Kalimshan. So it's on the far side of a trading empire. So Kalimshan is like the sultanates of the desert, and they have a strong maritime power as well. But ARM is like I don't know if they still are, but they were definitely the Spanish expansionist, religious, theocratic, Inquisition, conquistador sort of culture of Faerun. That was really their entire point, of emulating that sort of feel, that sort of vibe. So when ARM goes somewhere, they sort of take over, and they can be quite nasty because they believe that they've got a mandate from the gods to spread ARM, essentially. And they showed up in in Zakara. No, not Zakara. Mazdaca. They showed up in Mazdaca as the South American invasion sort of thing. So you can reenact that sort of destruction of the South American culture by the Spanish conquistadors, if you want to, in D&D. And historically, that's what really happened. Demon clans with matching accessories. Exactly right, Demons. Green Scythe. Oops. You guys are on fire today. Where does your soul go if you worship multiple gods of different pantheons? So each plane, outer plane, is oriented to a certain point of view, a certain alignment and a certain point of view. And they can get very fine on that. So Kalambor really decides what plane of existence is best for your personality. So you may worship an entirely different god, but the plane of existence that you go will be just right for your personality. You will fit and enhance the dream that is that place. So it's your paradise, essentially. That's where you go. Somewhere that best fits who you are. to further develop who that person is, or to be the place where that sort of personality just ends up, essentially. I hope that explains it. So it's not necessarily a religious thing, it's more of a personal growth and change sort of thing. Yeah, Jimmy. I mean, I think it's a fad, maybe, possibly. Here's where I see Dungeons and Dragons going in the future. So what I see as the perfect storm of this is all technology that we have right now, and I was talking about this in a Discord discussion the other day. So if you take all of those companies like whatchamacallit, Dragon Lock, Fat Dragon Games, various other ones who are producing 3D printable modular dungeon terrain, and then you take those programs and you put them into a virtual tabletop environment. So you can put together a modular environment and put light sources, dungeon encounters, triggers, all that sort of stuff, and integrate dice rolling systems and all that sort of hoo-ha. Then you combine it with something like Discord, which gives you video and voice chat capability with an overlay of a virtual desktop. Then you put on some virtual goggles and you go VR and you go into that 3D environment in person as your characters, and one of you is essentially the invisible dungeon master who is triggering things and everything like that, and you walk around and actually play in-person Dungeons and Dragons. We have the technology to do that right now. All it requires is a big company like Hasbro, who is actually spearheading a lot of the VR stuff right now, and the ball is really in Hasbro's court to realize that one of the major problems of Dungeons and Dragons right now is that a lot of people want to play, but they just don't have, the society that we have is not interconnected and interpersonal in person enough to really support an in-person game like this. So people constantly are bleating, where do I get a game? Where do I find people to play with? Well, virtual reality is the way to play essentially in person with people from the comfort and safety of your own home. And all of the technology exists, and Hasbro is perfectly positioned to now do this. That is where I see the future of Dungeons and Dragons, and it is beautiful. I don't think anybody would object to that. I think that's a fantastic direction for Dungeons and Dragons to go. It doesn't. It really, it's marrying traditional Dungeons and Dragons and all of the kit and the toys and all the different styles of play can be emulated with those simple bits and pieces. So all of the components for that exist. All it's going to take is somebody taking a market lead and actually combining it and bringing us a full package which everybody will flock to. That's where I see Dungeons and Dragons going. Who are the bigger butthole people, Callum Shan or Arm? I'd say Arm is. Callum Shan it's more chaotic. It's more like a free market, Middle Eastern sort of thing. So it depends on whoever you're dealing with. Yeah, Mastic is still part of Toril after the Spell Plague. Atheists go straight to Nieces. Yeah. I mean, if you're living in Curious AJ, do you think your comment on your Pixie video about the Fairy Fiddler was a joke, or have you read up on them? I found them in a Monstrous Manual, Annual Volume 3, circa 1996. I don't know. Yeah, Callum Ball will send people to the abyss if it fits their personality, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. They don't just go there automatically. They're actually sorted and sent. Callum Ball is the sorting hat of the multiverse. Well, he's not the sorting hat of the multiverse. He's the sorting hat of the Forgotten Realms realm space. I don't think, it's very hard to be an atheist in a world where people have clerical powers and stuff. That was one of the great things I saw. Why? How come we never see faith healers working on people who are amputees? You've regrown an arm! If I ever see that, man, whew, that will change my worldview pretty quickly. I've never seen a faith healer regrow somebody's arm before. Have you? I've just cured your multiple sclerosis. Oh, I'm missing stuff. Scroll. Alright, yeah, so virtual reality I see as being certainly a strong contender for a future growth direction. Did I miss it, William? Oh, sorry. Kajak, how do you feel about players wanting to play vampires, werewolves, and other cursed undead characters? I've had people play undead characters. I played undead characters myself in the form of... That was we were playing on a World of Warcraft RPG game, and I was playing one of the undead there, and that worked out fine. I've seen various games where vampires can work out really well, but vampires kind of need to be the main characters, and they're really good for solo games. Werewolves are good as complications, like lycanthropy is a good complication for a game, but I think once a character has gone completely over to lycanthropy, it's hard to have them roleplay really well. It gets really complicated because the other characters will feel compelled to kill them because they turn into monsters and kill people. Otherwise, you'd have to be untrue to what a lycanthrope is and say, well, oh no, you don't murder people when you're a werewolf. You have control over yourself. Nah, that's not how werewolves are supposed to be in D&D. Same thing with vampires. Vampires are bloodthirsty undead. So they are compelled to find any way to get the blood out of people. And yeah, so if you're role-playing more of a modern day media version of a vampire, then you're not being true to the Dungeons and Dragons version of a vampire. So traditionally they make for difficult but doable player characters. And it really depends on what sort of undead they are. Kick-ass Duke. So the counterspell is new to me, and I'm wondering how to implement it properly as a player character playing a wizard at the moment. Advice, stories from your games? Counterspell. Boy, that... What do I think about the Zaratan? I don't like the modern Zaratan at all. Counterspell, let's have a look at that for a second. Counterspell, counterflux, countercharm, counterspell. There it is. It says, you attempt to interrupt a creature in the process of casting a spell. So you've got to be aware, first of all, that somebody is casting a spell. So that would require awareness, looking, observation, perception. If the creature is casting a spell of 3rd level or lower, its spell fails and has no effect. So counterspell it's a 3rd level spell, so anything below it, you just switch it off before it even starts. It's instantaneous. The component is somatic, so essentially, what's somatic? It's words. So you say stop. So it's more like a Harry Potter Expelliarmus. If it is casting a spell of 4th level or higher, make an ability check using your spell casting ability. So if you're a cleric, it'll be wisdom. If you're a bard, it'd be charisma. The difficulty class equals 10 plus the spell's level. So it's going to be, 14 or higher? Because you're not going to be using that on 3rd level or lower spells. So it's going to be 14 up, the DC. On its success, the spell fails and has no effect. They still lose all their components for casting the spell. At higher levels, when you cast this at a higher spell slot than 3rd, when you're using a spell slot of 4th level or higher, the interrupt spell has no effect if its level is less than the equal to the level of spell slot you used. So essentially, you can bypass having to roll the spell class DC by upping the slot that you cast at. So if you cast a counterspell at 5th level spell slot, it's going to automatically dispel anything below 5th level. You get me? That's it. And it's got a 60-foot range. It's an abjuration negation effect. Abjurers are kind of like the cops of D&D. They're the FBI. They're the guys that if they hear that something has arrived in a city, for instance, this is happening in a campaign, my Tuesday campaign at the moment. There's a couple of abjurers on the case following the player characters because they've come through a portal from another dimension, another alternate universe, and the abjurers are tracking them down so they can banish them and send them back. As far as they see, they're just doing their duty. They don't know that they're sending those player characters back to a world which is being invaded by horrible insect creatures. What happens if you cast Dispel Magic on a magic item? Is it an effect temporary or permanent? It's usually temporary. Can be permanent. It's situational. I think there's actually discussions on D&D Beyond about that, and there's probably all sorts of other forums and stuff. Hey, Bryce. yeah, Counterspell can be very annoying if everybody's casting Counterspell at each other. Anybody who's played Magic the Gathering, the card game, with somebody who's playing a lot of blue cards will understand just how frustrating Counterspell can be. You essentially control and shut down that spellcaster. So I love the idea of spellcasters who are directly fighting against each other. So they go Counterspell, and then they basically engage something like a Witch Bolt at each other of concentration. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. I'll scroll back up and try and find it. AJ, someone referred to the Forgotten Realms as equivalent to Renaissance Europe. What do you think about that comparison? So the common, for instance, common that everybody speaks is Thoracic, and that is the equivalent of French German. So most of the accents of the people in the central area of Faerun is a Italian-French sort of sounding language. Whereas on the Sword Coast, it's more of a Scandinavian sort of sound to it. So dwarven sort of accent, and the harshness of the a lot of people swear in Orcish, Mountain Orcish and stuff like that, because those languages, and also a lot of people from Netheril transported and migrated over to the Sword Coast at the fall of their empire. And Netheril, that language was a kind of I think Netherese may have been a sort of a French Italian type sounding language, but it was also kind of Roman Latin. So people would have a bit of like, for instance, the Viking language was influenced by the Roman Empire because they found it fashionable to tack a on the end of words. So they used to say Valhall was where the hall of the gods, Valhall, but Valhalla sounded more Latin, and so now it was more fashionable to say Valhalla. So that's how languages get influenced. Boopity boopity. Is Eberron America and Forgotten Realms Europe, Asia? Yeah, ish, kinda. You could say that, Mossy. Yeah, Abjurers definitely are the Doctor Strange type. Yep. Any ideas on other types of Abishai? Just give them sort of more sort of traits similar to different hellish creatures. Rum. Have you ever had to play around with DDB's Encounter Builder? No, not really. Not for 5th edition. Does Forgotten Realms have a Santa Claus-like character? I mean, it'd be really easy to insert a Santa Claus-like character. I don't know. Perhaps. What's my opinion on the old school pig-faced orcs and dog-faced kobolds? So orcs, as I've pointed out again and again, are completely alien creatures to the Forgotten Realms. They're not native to the world of Toril. They come from a different world. And there was two different successive generations, two different imports of orcs that were quite different from each other. So the mountain orcs of the Spine of the World Mountains arrived earlier. They were brought over by, I think, portals created by the giants of Astoria. And Thay, the Thay Mountain and the Orc Gate War, Thay created another portal that brought over another bunch of orcs that were more intelligent and civilized than the orcs of the mountains. So mountain orcs are an older population of orcs, and you could say that they have the piggish sort of faces. Whereas, although in later artwork, definitely not, they're more sort of gorilla-faced in a way. Always with those prominent lower jaw tusks, which are characteristic of orcs. And they have grey skin, not green skin, of Warhammer 40k orcs. So it's really just artistic license. As for the kobolds, well, kobolds originally in folklore is another word for gnome. So as you can see, they're as far apart from gnomes as you could possibly be, really. I mean, they're still small, but other than that, they're very, very different from gnomes. So kobolds became a reptilian race and then became a draconic race as the game progressed and changed. And I'm happy with the way that kobolds are now. But you could certainly say that in alternate planes of existence, say you go to some layer of the abyss that was an alternate dimension where they were pig-faced orcs and dog-faced kobolds. Why not? Nobody moderates. Have you moderated anything, Gerbil? See you later, Gerbil. Abjuration isn't hated by other wizards. I don't know where you got that idea. I mean, Abjurers are the ones that are going to show up and make the evil wizards have a really bad day. Because Abjurers show up and say, no, you can't experiment on that sort of thing. No milking a gibbering mouther to create weird food additives. No, that is wrong. Navigation wizard with cataracts. Zot. Oops, sorry. I had been confused on this. Can a primordial become a god? I heard that Io and Kosuth were primordials, then became gods, and there's an Orcus, a corrupted elemental that is or was a god. And there's Orcus. Orcus is not a corrupted elemental. Orcus was a mortal who became a demon and became a demon lord and masquerades as a god, but is not an official recognized god of any pantheon. Primordials can become gods, for sure, if essentially they're allowed to. Should the people of Faerun be worried for the return of the giant and dragon wars? The giants are long gone, really. They're never going to, unless Anam Allfather comes back, the giants are never going to reach the ascendancy they once had, unless other dimensional giants somehow just arrive on Toril. The dragons, on the other hand, pose a significant threat to all other sentient life on the world of Toril, because the dragon rage is now gone, done, dusted. So the dragons no longer face the possibility that they are going to go periodically mad and kill each other and murder all of their followers and stuff. So the dragons are now working together again. But the dragons are mainly concerned with other dragons and dragon politics and dragon social interactions and politics and bureaucracy and all that sort of stuff, and challenges and the great game that they play amongst themselves. So they're not cohesive enough. And it's been a long time since they've been a cohesive force. So there's got to be a culture shift amongst the dragons. However, a significantly powerful and charismatic dragon leader could unite the dragons, in theory. See you later, Darkstrider. Any idea why they're called lycanthropes? I don't know. I've always known them as lycanthropes. I can't tell you. You probably know more about it than I do. How does a mortal ascend to godhood? Essentially, they become very powerful, and they become multidimensional. And then those multidimensional parts are connected by an overgod, essentially. If they find some way to connect with, like I always refer to that whatchamacallit, Jet Li movie, the one where he's going to all the different alternate planes of existence and killing versions of himself to become more powerful. Well, gods are like that, except instead of killing those alternate versions of themselves, they integrate psychically so that one mind controls all of them. And each one of those becomes an avatar of that god. But the mental overarching entity, which is connecting all of those different bodies, is the god on the astral plane, because the astral plane is a thought realm. So there are many different ways to get to that point of existence where you are a mental entity on a plane of existence outside of the physical universe that is mentally connecting all these different physical bodies to the point where you now exist independent of any individual body. And those become your avatars, and they can shift and change and move and stuff. So there you go. Do I like the new Artificer? I haven't seen the latest Artificer. I'm a bit over Artificers, really. Like it's been done to death so much. It gets a point where you get teased so much that you're just like, ugh, stop prodding me with the Artificer bullshit. Please, just give me the finished Artificer. Too much hype, man. I'm like hyped out. Give me a decent Mystic. Give me a decent Artificer. Give me a full, complete Artificer and Mystic. Please. Thank you. Done and dusted. Let's just get on with it. Yeah, so in the world of Faerun, that overarching connectivity is controlled by an overgod. So there's a middleman in there, which is Ao. In other planes of existence, that doesn't happen. So you can become a god if you just ascend far enough. Other planes of existence, the criteria for being called a god by the individuals who live on those planes of existence are much lower. Sometimes they're much higher. Yeah. How does a mortal become multi-dimensional? I don't know, man. There's lots of different roads to that path. No, not all campaign settings have an overgod. Yeah, Mystic's been reworked again. It's Mike Mills' baby. What can I say? Yeah, so the metallic dragons are more united, but they still have a lot of internal politics of their own and conflicts. Don't get me wrong. Just because they're a good race of dragons doesn't mean they're all good. Will you put together some visuals on how to perceive the multiverse? How I perceive the multiverse? Maybe use some in a video. Yep, I'll try. I'll try. We just need more classes, really? Yeah, cloning yourself is one way to go. Yeah. Cadjack, I don't really think we need a psionics class. I don't think we need a separate psionics system. I think the magic system works perfectly fine for psionics. Really. I mean, what is magic if not psionic sort of effect? Yeah, exactly, Justin. Mills is doing the Mystic. Well, that's never going to come out of R&D. Yeah, exactly. It's like tweak, 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 tweak. Like his live streams where he was doing development and stuff. It was basically just he was like, this week we're going to do another Mystic, different tweaks on it. So he's kind of like showing people how you build a character class. Manwolf. No, Io Asgorath, the Io is not Ao. So Io is or was the dragon overgod. Sorry, not the dragon overgod. One of the dragon gods, Asgorath. Different from Ao. I get asked that a lot. Yep. Wolves. Yeah, there's you can incorporate all sorts of stuff into. Oh, you were fishing. Nice one, Don. You can incorporate all of the different fairy tales into the Feywild. That's the entire point. So the Feywild is a backdrop that you insert fairy tales into, and the fairy tales become a place where characters can walk around and interact with the fairy tale. So they will meet Alice in Wonderland. They will meet, the Mad Hatter and the Red Queen, and they will meet Rapunzel, and they will meet the Wicked Witch that gives them an apple that puts them to sleep. All of that stuff exists in the Feywild. It's a world as much of dream as it is of nature. So, you know, some bits of the Feywild are more fairy tale-y, and some bits are more nature gone wildy sort of stuff. So it's a complicated mishmash of different places. And some of the fairy tales move. Like wherever Baba Yaga goes is her domain. So she changes the environment around her. She morphs the environment like she's a dream that's moving through a place. And it changes, and everybody in that place gets wrapped up in that dream. It's like they go, wow, they're in Baba Yaga town for a while until she leaves. If that makes any sense. It's wibbly wobbly for sure. Perceptually quite different from the mortal world. Oh yeah, I think it was an Argentinian company that made a Dungeons and Dragons animated, not animated, live action Dungeons and Dragons car commercial for the Outsider vehicle. And it's quite good, using the original characters from the Dungeons and Dragons Saturday morning cartoon, including that wretched unicorn. I have a thing against Uni the unicorn. Sorry. Uni the unicorn would end up barbecue steaks if she came around to my place. What do I think of the Wheel of Time series? I started reading it. I never finished reading it, obviously, of course. How could you? It never ends. It was good. It was good. Some aspects I still remember really well, like Thomas and the Valar, and what's his name? Lan and Dragonfire, and the idea of mage fire that destroys something so utterly that it even destroys the memory that it existed. I really like that. Do I feel that the 40k gods have a place in Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah, I think so. Like Nurgle should definitely be in Dungeons and Dragons. Slaanesh should definitely be in Dungeons and Dragons. Khorne is like demon lord incarnate. Yeah, absolutely. Like for instance, if you wanted to sort of emulate that into D&D, you could say that when an entire race like imagine there was something that genocided every single elf, and their death throes created a new sort of demon god, like disrupted the astral realm so much that it warped and mixed up with the abyss. Imagine if the abyss suddenly bled over into the astral realm and started to seriously take over the multiverse. That's the sort of Warhammer 40k warp and those sort of entities. So it's D&D. Things exist in D&D to sort of allow that to happen. If you turn it up to like the drama up to 11, the conflict up to 11, then you get Warhammer 40k, and it's quite possible to combine that. If I were a god, what ideals would I represent and what domains would I have? I'd basically be Demir, I imagine. Cataly's library god, I suppose. Like, I'm quite happy just pottering around reading books and talking about stuff. So, Demir. Yeah, Skaven are cool. Ermagerd! Psionics and psionic phenomena are not magic. Yeah, well... In 5th edition, I'm saying, William. I'm not saying about older editions of the game. Older editions of the game, psionics work perfectly fine and make sense. I think 2nd edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons psionics worked perfectly fine. I'm kind of biased from like 3.5 edition Psynix and just like how ridiculous Soul Blades and all that sort of stuff became. Like, really? I'm gonna kill everything with my dagger. What plane, in my opinion, is the least used and least visited? Like, people go through the transitive planes quite often, but they don't really stay and explore the transitive planes. Like, there's a lot of influence on demi planes, so like Ravenloft, Planes of Dread. Lower planes, well, the lower planes, like the lower layers of the lower planes, quite often don't get visited. Some of the planes of the Abyss are really cool to explore. So if you went to like Dis or something like that, and the Nine Hells, that's kind of interesting. Some of the realms of some of the layers of the Nine Hells are really interesting. Malbolg. And yeah, I guess we're going to see a lot of Avernus and the ruins and things like that. Malbolg is kind of like that as well. It's like, imagine you get this huge, big, massive city, absolutely devastate and ruin it, fill it up with noxious, toxic waste, and add some sort of exploded, super huge hag entity, which creates this organic overlay of filth on it. And that's Malbolg. It's an awesome place, awesome hellish landscape. Yeah, don't go to the negative plane. It's a downer. Transitive planes, yeah. So planes that you go to get to somewhere else, essentially, is what a transitive plane. Planes that connect other things. Yeah, daggers are cool. The cheese god. No. Is it possible to get to the few plane while alive? Yeah, it is. They'll probably go, what are you doing here? Get out. Yeah, William, so if you look at magic from a more multiversal point of view, so outside of the weave and stuff, like Athos, for instance, it requires the force of will to use magic on Athos. You have to be skilled to use magic on Athos. Whereas on the Forgotten Realms, Mistra made it so that anybody who knew the right formulas could essentially use magic. You didn't need to be a special individual to use magic originally. And then she made it harder and harder and harder because things got out of control. So if you take away that god controlling magic, it becomes much more psychic when you think about it. But it's not perfect. Yeah, Psyonix just uses willpower. Like in the Drow houses, that Drow house that got destroyed by House Banray, they were a psychic Drow house, so they used psychic power, and it was only by using external. That was during the time of Troubles, when the gods sort of switched off their divine power, and one of the psychic Drow houses started to gain precedence. But eventually Lolth came back and wiped that house out entirely. So yeah. Have you done a video on Sigil and the Lady of Pain? Yes, I have. Can you astral project backwards before your soul gets into the afterlife? Ooh, that's a good question. Wow. Gee. Can a dead person astral project? I don't know. Boy, imagine if you had some sort of device in the ethereal that allowed you to do that, to astral project back into the mortal world as a sentient ghost, essentially. Yeah, thank you, House of Bludra. That's the one. I knew you'd know, William. What cheese? I ate 4 cheeses today. I'll just show you. We had the this is the Livingston Gold, the aged Airedale, the Totra Tasty, and the Windsor Blue. The Windsor Blue is really nice. I'm going to continue eating that all day. Almost time for me to go, everybody. Yeah, Kajak, I don't agree with what they did with the demiplane spell thing. Demiplane seed. Like, you have to be some sort of a superhuman to create a decent demiplane these days. I think it's more along the lines of, in order to create a proper demiplane, demi-realm, you need to be either a super powerful being, or you need to be a group of beings who are working together towards it, which is fine. Yeah, R.A. Salvatore's drow politics are pretty damn good. I think he set the standard, really. Sinzu, hey, how's it going? Your thoughts on the old TSA game Gamma World? Did you play? Did you enjoy? You can see by the smile on my face that I did indeed play that game. Would you consider that a different dimension D&D fantasy? Yeah, it's definitely a different dimension. I did play it. It was really good. I loved the mutation tables and stuff. And also the one where you're on a ship that was in Dragon Magazine. So they had a whole RPG in one of the earlier Dragon magazines where you're on a ship. Kind of like the ship from Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. In fact, it might have been the same ship. In fact, I don't know. If kobolds are in an army, what roles do they take? The ones that you beat into them. They're really good sappers, so they're really good at digging and bringing down fortifications and stuff like that, and infiltrating behind enemy lines. So kobolds are really good industrious workers and are quite capable of creating complex underground structures. And of course, booby traps. So they make really good commando booby trap makers. Are there ways like contingency and wish to preserve yourself when you go to the afterlife? Yeah, there's all sorts of different ways, Dragon Turtle. There's as many different ways. Did you play Cabal? No, I didn't. I suppose so. Eladrin, yeah. Gamma World. Do you think there are anti-healing potioners in the D&D? Oh, yeah, it's called poison. Would a lich be able to take over our real world? This is not Dungeons and Dragons. The abyss is what happens when a reality is taken over by demons, and then it gets added to as another layer of the abyss. Is a demiplane no longer inside a bag of holding? Yes, I believe so. Yeah, exactly, Dragon Lord. I love you guys having a debate about the nature of magic and psionics. Oh, anti-healing potion is more like an antibiotics resistance potion. You think our reality is an anti-magic one. Our reality is the only reality that we need to concern ourselves with until such time as we can go to another reality. Like I say, we might as well make virtual realities. It's a lot easier to go somewhere that we create than to go somewhere that's completely contrary to our laws of physics. And why not? On that note, I'm going to go back to my reality and leave you to yours, everybody. Have a great week. There's going to be a couple of videos on the plane of fire and salamanders and all things flamey this week. Have a good holiday weekend. And I'll catch you next week for another live stream. It'll be an hour earlier next week. Bye.